Hi class. In lecture 1, we looked at importing data from various sources into Excel as Excel tables. In this lecture, we'll look closely at how to use these Excel table feature. Um, we'll take the particular example of importing data from a CSV file that we did last time. It was actually data from a portable sensor. As you can see, when we imported that data, we had a lot of unnecessary information which we have to clean up. And once we clean it up, we have to sort things in such a way that it makes it meaningful for processing. So let's pull up an Excel file and repeat that process. So we'll go to the data import feature, use the same file we used last time. Make sure everything is in order. Load it to a location that we prefer. For example, here. So we got this table now. So some of the things I'd like to do is delete these unnecessary rows. I like to rename my column headers. And delete the unwanted rows again. Okay, now this looks more meaningful. You can see these drop-down menu. This is basically for sorting our data. So this is a feature that is available if your data is formatted as a table, which you can see over here. It is formatted as a table. Now, for example, if I wanted to see the data at 1:30 p.m. only at different days, so I'll go in there and select 1:30 p.m. And that gives me what was the temperature and humidity at 1:30 p.m. on 2 different days. So it's an easy to sort and select data using tables. We could also sort them in ascending or descending orders. Unfortunately, it's not filtering by number, it is filtering by text. It's because when we imported the data, it has imported all these numbers as text. So that's why you're getting text filters. If you had number filter in here, you could sort in ascending or descending order. We'll go ahead and give it a try anyway. Yeah, it does sort in ascending order. Let's go back to, let's undo that change. Okay, so next thing to do would be, we don't have an actual incremental time column. So we'll go ahead and add a time column. So the way to do that would be just right click on a column and insert a column. So in this case, we'll add a column to the left. Here, we'll call it the time in minutes. Okay, if you look at this column, it seems like the time is incrementing in 1 minute step. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to just input 0 and 1 minute increment and then double click. So it's going to fill the time column in 1 minute steps. This is not the right way to do things. Um, we'll learn more about how to deal with time in one of the later lectures, but um, for now, we'll just go by this method. Now, if we wanted to only see data, hey, by the way, you can see the number filters are coming in here, and you could actually sort by smallest to largest because this column is formatted as number as opposed to this, which is unfortunately formatted as a text. We'll fix that later on. But for now, let's say we want to only know the data is after 100 minutes. So you could just say greater than or equal to 100 here. So now you have only data starting from 100 minutes onwards. Another thing to note here is, if I clear that, um, I could select Control Shift and arrow. I could select this, and it will give me the total count of this in this case because it's a text um, column. If you do that in a number column, it should give you both the count and the average and the sums. So you could get an average of that row, count, and sums. Um, whatever we did with using the number filter, somewhat similar things you can do by adding a slicer. So if you insert a slicer and then choose your time minute, now you can visually slice it. So if you don't want data from the first 20 minutes, so you go there, sorry, the other way. It's doing the opposite. Let's say you don't want data from the first 20 minutes. You could select using the slicer. I find this more difficult actually. I rather use the number filter, but here's a visual option in case you would like to do it that way. And you can just simply delete it to get rid of it. Another thing to note here is to get rid of this down select arrow, you could go to table design and then click that filter button so you can remove that. It'll come back easily when you click it back on. And from this table to arrange, if you want to get rid of this table function and convert this to a range, just click convert to range. Now it's all a range. And you can see when it went to range, you could see this error, which we'll fix it later. One way to fix this would be select all of them. Okay, and then click this warning function and convert to number. So now all of them are converted to number. You'll start seeing the average, count, and sum here. But I'm not going to do that right now because we'll take care of it in a different way. So even in even in the convert to range, you could still sort by going to the data tab and using the filter function. So now you get back the sort feature. You you can easily remove that. We'll convert this back to a table for now by going to home, format as table. Another option here is you could choose any different formatting styles that are available here. For now, let's just pick orange. And you want your first column as your headers, first row as your headers. So that's correct. Why didn't it change to orange? That's interesting. Okay, there's something going on right now that it didn't change the table formatting color, but typically it changes to the style that you pick here. The next thing I wanted to show you is about the pivot table feature. So in the table design tab, you have summarize with pivot table feature. You could also get to it from the insert option, but typically you can do it here. And one thing I also forgot to mention is you can pick a custom name for your table here. By default, it has taken the name table2. You could change it to anything you would like, you know. For example, this one, we could call it logger data. Okay, and let's click on this pivot table, and it'll ask for which table you're looking for, which is our logger table. And let's say we want to put that pivot table function in another page. Now, what exactly is a pivot table? Before going to that, let's go back to our presentation. So it's a small summary table of a large data table. So it's only useful if your original data set is really large, so that there is some meaning to summarizing it. If you already are starting with a small table, there is no use or value for using a pivot table. The other main or major important criterion is you need to have a lot of repeated values in some of the columns. And it should also include categorical data like name states, prototypes, failure modes, which are repeated in several columns, several rows, I mean. Um, and there should be at least one column which has numerical values, which can be averaged, summed, counted, or created a percentage out of. So that's also an important criterion. Having said that, let's see whether our data falls into that. So if you go back and look at our data, we do have repeating dates, okay? And we do have some of the times that repeat because, they repeat every 24 hours. But other than that, we don't have much repetition. And we don't have data that could be summed that will make any meaning. There is no meaning to a sum of a temperature. But we can make some sense out of an average temperature or an average humidity. So there's some data that you can analyze. Typically, engineering data is not very suitable for pivot tables. I hardly had ever used pivot table for most of my data processing. It is more suitable for people who are working in accounting, sales, that kind of stuff. In engineering, I think you could find data that is suitable for pivot table analysis, especially if you're dealing with quality data like factory quality, product quality, things like that. There's a lot of repetition of a same test or a same measurement, uh, things like that. Um, Going back to our table here, so you should pick the value as in the value section here, something that you want to count or sum or average. So in our case, we could choose temperature and humidity. It's starting with count here. That's because it's stored as a text. Let's just see what happens if we try to do an average. So if we try to do an average, it's already giving an error. Let's hold on to that. Let's put in the rows the one that is a repeating row. It's just date. Okay. So it is hard for us to figure out what was the average temperature on this particular date and average temperature on this particular date. What is a way to fix this? First way was what we originally saw was changing the convert the values to from values stored as text into numbers back by clicking that information pop-up. Another method is, this is why tables are so versatile. I could create a new column here, call it humidity values. And it'll create a new column, and same with temperature values. And then I'm skipping few classes ahead, but there's something called a value function. So I'll just input that value function in one cell, and voila, you see, it just populates the whole rest of cells. These are some of the benefits of using tables. You don't have to input data multiple times, click or drag, all those kind of stuff. So go back, put value. So now we have two additional columns. We go back to our pivot table. Those two columns are not showing up here. What should we do? Go to the pivot table, analyze, and click refresh. Now you have those two additional columns. You unhide these two and drag these two new ones into your values section here. Now you can see a sum of humidity and sum of temperature. That is kind of meaningless. We'll go into an average. So you could see now this is more meaningful. You could drag this how many ever times you want here and do different types of value calculations in here. So now I want a max of humidity. So that was the max of humidity on that day. So you get the picture here. So pivot tables could be useful if you have data that are repeated and you could sort them um, in different rows like this. In this case, the row data is the date, and you have something that you could sum up to or average or count. In our case, it was an average of humidity. Yeah, so that's pivot tables. I think we can conclude this class here, unless I'm missing something. Yes, so that's all for this class on tables. We'll learn more about um, basic operations and functions in the coming lectures. Thank you.